Chapter number 13 from your history book of grade 9, and the name of the chapter is the Industrial Revolution. We have to understand the meaning of the Industrial Revolution. So, during the second half of the 18th century and the first half of the 19th century, many changes took place in the field of industry. The term Industrial Revolution has been used to denote all these changes according to H.A. Davies. The Industrial Revolution is a term which is used to express the change which was responsible for the adoption of the system of making things on a large scale in a large factories with the aid of steam power as opposed to the old system, which was generally followed up to the middle of the 18th century of making goods in cottages or shops of workers. So next, after this, we are having the impact of the Industrial Revolution. The impact, we are having the capitalist and we're having the socialist role we are going to study. So, the Industrial Revolution was a great landmark in the history of the world. In revolutionized the industry and deeply affected the economic, social, political, and cultural life of the people. So, first is the economic impact, rise of capitalism. The Industrial Revolution led to the rise of the capitalism. As a result, the new developments on the economic field, large scale production, the use of machinery and division of labor now manufactured goods more rapidly and on a much larger scale than under the domestic system. At this time, the cost of production was very low per unit. Production of goods was standardized also. Now the consumers could get quality goods at cheaper rates. Number 2, increase in the national income. The Industrial Revolution led to the mass production of goods which began to be sold in the other countries. It increased the national wealth of the industrialized countries, particularly that of England. It increased her national wealth and able her to stand at the strain of the French wars of 1793 to 1815 CE. Number 3, improvement in the standard of living. People became rich due to the Industrial Revolution. Good quality of goods were now made available at cheaper rates. It raised the standard of living. It greatly increased the comforts of the people. New means of transport, communication, railways, ships, automobiles, etc. proved a boon in the mankind and made man's life richer, more comfortable, and happier. It not only improved the food, dress, and dwelling of the people, but also improved their way of thinking and intellectual standards. Number 4, increase in population. The Industrial Revolution increased the national wealth, raised the standard of living, made life more convenient and luxurious. All this helped in checking the various diseases, and ultimately it led to an increase in population. The population of England rose from 70 lakh in 1750 CE to 210 lakhs in 1825 CE. Number 5, urbanization or rise of towns and cities. The introduction of machinery destroyed the domestic system of production. This growth of industries and the use of huge machines led to the establishment of factories. The people of villages shifted to towns and cities to get employment and in the factories. This in turn led to the growth of new towns and cities in England such as Manchester and so on. It made modern civilization essential urban in character, and the city life broadened the outlook of man. Number 6, growth in agriculture. Introduction of machine, better seeds, new crops, and drainage of wasteland, and the use of fertilizers and improvement in stock breeding led the growth of agriculture. The farmers produced not only corns but also cash crops on a large scale and became very rich. Seventh point, development of banking. Progress in industry and commerce was responsible for the growth of joint stock and trading companies which carried out the business with the help of the banks. The agriculturalists also got loans from the improvement of agriculture. This led to the development of banking system. Point number 8, national and international markets. The industrial revolution led to the development first of national markets and then to the international markets. The different governments began to levy heavy taxes on the import goods in order to safeguard their national industries. The industrial revolution also led to the production of goods on mass, scale, which increased their export on the other countries. Thus, import and export business led to the development in the international markets. What was the social impact of this rise of socialism? The Industrial Revolution led to a rise of socialism as a result of new development. Disappearance of small farmers. Now, the small farmers who worked on land and manufactured goods in their spare time and in their homes shifted to new industrial towns, and they were forced to seek employment and in factories because they were replaced by big landlords. Number 2, unsatisfactory conditions for factory workers. In order to make huge profits, the employers exploited the workers to the maximum. Workmen had to work in factories which were poorly ventilated, poorly lighted, and were extremely unhealthy. They had to work for 16 hours without any break. Most of the factories were located in dirty and unhealthy places. So, they caused many diseases and led to a premature death of the workers. The workers were very low paid and they found it difficult to make their both ends meet. Number 3 is exploitation of women and children and the factory laws. Women and children were employed in large numbers in factories as they were cheaper and easy to manage. They had to work for long hours in dirty, insanitary, and ill ventilated factories, but it had an adverse effect on their health and generally well being. Even very young children worked from 3 a.m. to 10 p.m. with only 4 or 5 hours for sleep. As such, they had very little time for meals and for play. So, we find that it is a kind of exploitation. Not kind, actually this is the form of exploitation. Okay, in order to improve the conditions of the factory workers, various laws were passed from time to time, especially in England. The first act was passed in 1802 in England. As a result of this act, the working hours of the cotton and the woolen mill workers at the maximum was fixed up to 12 hours. And they could not be forced to work after 9 p.m. So this kind of acts were coming up which were supervising the work and not done properly by the supervisors. Okay, this kind of acts were coming up now and then. Then came the Factory Act in 1937, laid down that children below 14 years could not be employed. Special rules were also made for sanitization, light, air, temperature, and first aid. It became necessary to report about the accidents which took place in the factories. As a result of this laws, the condition of the factory workers generally improved with the Factory Act of 1937. In sanitary conditions in the town, a large number of people shifted from villages to the industrial towns and as such, the latter became overcrowded. There was no arrangement for sanitization, drainage, ventilation, etc. The workers lived a miserable life in dingy, dirty, and congested houses. So, as the population increases, the number of slums also went on increasing. It has been rightly remarked the workers too often lived in a miserable little house that looked for all the world like cheesy box also with set on the row. Number 5, moral downfall of the society. Women had also to work for the long hours in the factories in order to supplement their family's income. As a result, they had no time and energy to look after their children and household duties. It was difficult for them to maintain their modest and virtue under such circumstances. Vices like drinking, gambling, etc., were common among them. It led to degradation of immorality. Next, two classes of society. As a result of the Industrial Revolution, and the society was divided into two distinct classes, the capitalist and the socialist, who took up the causes of laborers. Because of their selfish interest, the capitalists began to exploit the workers. They paid them low wages and made them work for long hours. Unemployment, especially in the initial stage, was another social evil of the Industrial Revolution, which raised a serious problem in the industrial countries. As the work was now done by the machines, many workers were thrown out of employment. Consequently, the first unemployment march was organized in England in 1817 CE. Thank you.